She was so smart and she had so much to say, and she never shut up. Her legs didn't work, but her mouth never stopped.
Andrea Thorne and her twin sister Bailey Jo were born at 25 weeks. At just days old, they suffered significant brain bleeds. Both girls survived, but it caused Andrea to develop a condition called hydrocephalus.
That's what Andrea battled her whole life.
The bleeding caused clots in her brain that blocked off the ability of spinal fluid to travel down the spine, and so it accumulated in her brain.
Normally, you can treat it with a shunt, which is basically like a plumbing system. It takes the fluid off the brain and into other parts of the body. The problem with the shunt systems is that there's a very high rate of failure.
Andrea lived in her wheelchair in and out of hospitals and operating rooms, but she didn't let that stop her.
She never met a stranger. She was hardly ever unhappy. And if it was because of her medical conditions. It wasn't because I'm in a wheelchair and I'm mad.
She liked to do things that we like to do, you know. I think the only reason she liked to hunt was because I like to hunt. Anyway, we got to go on disabled hunts and things like that.
One of her dreams was to be in a pageant, just like her sisters. During a visit to Cindy's pageant dresses, Bailey, Jo, and Lauren were trying on gowns. The shop owner, Cindy Jeffers, asked BJ if Andrea wanted to try on one.
I was watching Andrea. She was watching them, being ever so patient, and I just couldn't get it. You know, I wanted her to feel like they felt, and so I looked at BJ and I said, "What about her?"
I just told her, I was like, no, that's okay. That's really nice of you. Thank you so much for trying to include her.
Little did BJ know, Andrea overheard and asked her mom if she could try on a gown too.
Probably one of those pivotal moments that somebody said, it's okay to be different. Even though we had preached that in our own home, it was just like, okay, well, let's do it. What do we have to lose, you know? Miss Cindy, who is the precious store owner that was with us, and she came over and put a little crown on Andrea's head. And, sorry. And that's when she said, Mama, can I do a pageant?
Even though BJ realized Andrea just wanted to get dressed up and feel special, her initial reaction was no.
I didn't want her to be made fun of. I didn't want for others to pity her. That's the last thing that I wanted for any of my children.
After a little coaxing, BJ changed her mind.
Why isn't there pageants for children? All children. You know, just because she's got a special need, why isn't there pageants out there like that?
As we drove away, I told my mother-in-law, I said, I guess, you know, we're going to start a pageant. And she said, I figured as much.
She told her husband, Jonathan, about her idea, and much to her surprise, he agreed. He even came up with the name.
It began as the Arkansas Angels pageant because we had no idea that it would grow or that we would even have 5 people there.
Andrea didn't compete in the first pageant. She was having brain surgery. The next year, however, she was healthy enough to participate. BJ says it wasn't until the night before the pageant, when she was gluing feathers and Justin Bieber pictures to Andrea's wheelchair, that she finally got it.
This was probably one of those moments where I knew that this is why I'm here. That it had nothing to do with money or fame or anything that was about anything else but these kids and these families.
Seven-year-old London Giles is a participant in the Angels pageant system. London was diagnosed with autism 3 years ago, and her parents wanted to make sure she didn't grow up with the label.
She is important. She is number one. She is, you know, the star, and that's why we enjoy it. From the time that we walk in, actually parking on the parking lot, the volunteers greet us at our car. Whatever you need, we will be there for you. We will do it for you. Then we enter the church and everyone is there greeting us with love. We're just so glad you're here. This is all of the wonderful things that she's going to do today. She goes to a makeup room where she gets all made up. You know, volunteers come out and they do her hair, and these are professionals. And then she gets to go amongst her other friends that we get to see once a year and see how they've come along. And again, they're together just being celebrated and all the love.
It makes her feel loved and appreciated for who she is. And I mean, I think that any kid with special needs or without special needs, every kid wants to feel that. They need to feel that in order to help them develop into a whole person.
The clothes, the hair, the makeup, everything is free thanks to donations. While at the pageant, volunteers lead the children through the entire process.
We wanted the families to be able to sit in the audience and be able to watch and be able to just enjoy it rather than trying to be nervous about wrangling their child.
There are no time limits for how long a child can stay on stage. Some show off a particular talent, while some prefer to just bask in the limelight.
Whenever we go through the whole lineup for that age group, they'll come back through one at a time and get crowned. They'll get their prizes and crowned. Then we have photo opportunity at that point.
BJ says every child gets a title and a crown.
What we did is we incorporated into our registration that every family gets to kind of pick what their child's title is. And so it's very specific to them. The crown is universal. You do not have to tell a child where a crown goes. They know exactly where it goes. It goes on my head. They know, and you don't have to explain it, and they will just grin from ear to ear.
After her first pageant, Andrea said something her mom will never forget.
And the coolest thing was when we drove away from the pageant that night, she looked at us and she said, "Mama, I won that pageant." And even there was no losers. I mean, that's exactly what I wanted. I wanted every person that came away from that to feel like they won, because they did.
Andrea competed in 2 more Angels pageants before she passed away in 2013, just 3 days before Christmas.
She ended up having 48 shunts before it was all said and done. And this last revision, or this last malfunction rather, just wasn't caught. And unfortunately, she passed away from shunt malfunction.
After Andrea died, the Thorns thought about quitting the pageants, but they decided it just wasn't an option.
There's too many people involved. There's too many families that have been touched.
We don't take it for granted. We don't take it lightly that we wouldn't be able to experience that if it wasn't for the bravery of the little girl, and then for the people in her life to say, well, let's just do it, rather than say, no, that's impossible.
It's just really neat to see the support all over the world, really. And you know, it's something that we know that Andrea's legacy will live on, whether there's one child that participates or 1 million. You know, people are going to know her name, and they're going to know that we do this in honor of her memory. There's no takebacks. You know, there's no do-overs. You know, this life is it. You know, you get one shot. And I think that's one thing that these babies remind us, is that we're blessed and that, you know, we got to make it count.